Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Planning Commission work session, Wednesday, April 9th. We are opening our meeting. So we're going to have a discussion about Ordinance 562, housing affordability. And I will turn the time over to Sarah and Jenny for discussion.
All right. So at our, Aaron, this is interesting. No, Nathan's not. Okay. So. Do you like one of these?
Thank you.
So So we had at our, what do you guys call those, the other meeting that we had, the committee meeting? Is that what it is? Okay, the committee meeting, we reviewed what the HUZ is and what comments we had from last meeting. What, what are some things we need to maybe adjust? What are some ideas that came from that meeting? One was defining affordability. And so I went through Senate Bill 37, House Bill, Senate Bill, House Bill. I've got it here. And really, so the way that House Bill 37, are you guys familiar with the bill?
Yes, I was just reading it again today.
So it's looking at, for a city that's already really well zoned out and has a lot of different zones, kind of a ratio of doubling zones and things like that. It has a section on residential and a section on high density. So the way our HOZ is written right now is really to focus on the residential side of it. We're looking towards those cottage homes. There isn't really anything with townhomes or apartments addressed in our HOZ ordinance. And I wanted to make sure that was the intention. The way I was telling Jenny, the way I see it, we have the overlay, the mixed use overlay. And in those commercial zones, we have the ability to put those townhomes and apartment buildings when they do the commercial overlay. And it requires open space. So this would be probably what we're looking at, but there's so much agricultural land in Harrisville right now that people are looking to sell that might feel a better use as residential. That's probably where this overlay would apply. And so I wanted to get your input. Is that the direction you're hoping to go with this ordinance?
Oh, that's a great question.
That is great.
So what are we looking at specifically? We're looking at on the west side of Harrisville, right down kind of in the wetlands. And we're building, where are we looking at specifically?
Ag land, could use the overlay or anything. It looks like a lot that's been zoned residential. A lot that's residential is built out already, but I mean, there's some pockets through here that's residential that, I don't know how much of it's already built out. But that's currently residential zone and agricultural. Yeah, looking to put cottage.
And take that one step further, we're probably talking about parcels that were over 2.5 to 3 acres.
Yes.
A 1 acre parcel in an A1 zone. The price pointing
No.
isn't gonna,
So one of the things I was thinking about today, when I was just going through some of the information again before we came here, is that I think one of our goals is, and it just seems like the intent of our city, whether it's administration, planning commission, city council, we want there to be some flexibility. We don't want anyone to feel stuck. So we don't want anyone to feel like they have no mobility if they want to move from a smaller home to a larger home within the same, part of Harrisville or within the county. We don't want landowners who are ready to sell their land to feel stuck. We don't want developers to feel stuck. There's no options. So I feel like the housing, the HOZ gives us some flexibility. And I like the idea of increasing opportunities for cottage homes, single family homes. We townhouses are always a hot button issue, not that they can't exist, but they do bring a lot of challenges. And any development can, but I like the flexibility. I like the option.
And vice versa, what you were saying, so people want to downsize.
Right, yes.
Yeah, downside.
And I feel like and I've said this at many meetings, I think when we have some of these, smaller, single family, but higher density and, density sometimes is a dirty word for people, but, there are so many options that caters to so many demographics, I think more than many housing options. I think a patio home, a cottage home caters to more demographics than any other housing option out there.
Any thoughts?
No, yeah, I just echo that's the goal is, there's just a lot, especially in Utah, there's a lot of neighborhoods that, entire neighborhood is clearly geared towards one demographic. And so, which in turn, if, market changes and stuff that increases the prices for everyone, more than they should. It seems like artificial inflation, so, I think that's been the approach so far with this, it's finding a way that more people can find the right home for them at that time in their life and in their budget. Anyway, so yeah, it seems like the small pockets of, what agricultural zones is probably, the best place to apply them.
My concern has always been, well, a lot of the focus of what I think I bring to the commission is, Nathan definitely brings fine tooth comb perspective. I'm more of how it looks and how it feels and functionality and, I look at the housing development just up the road there, like 20th North, right on the time. And I remember when we went over that and we all approved it and everything, but as I look at it now, it's like, where are the kids gonna play? And there's not as much green space, that I would like. And I think that we have to always, keep in mind that with density, we have to have a little space, we have to have green space, because that's what attracts people. It's not living next door, because, in Missouri, while I was going to graduate school, I could go like this between two houses. And we don't want that. We don't want that here, because we talked about the feel of Harrisville. So we have to be able to walk that fine balance between density and openness. And green space and beauty. I don't see the things that cities are doing around, us, but putting lights on the streets, putting trees alongside of the roads, and it's cement doesn't attract people. It's the beauties that exist wherever you go that attract. And if we want people to stay, and this idea of multi-generational housing, then we need to make it a beautiful place for people who want to come and raise their kids. Let's go for a walk tonight. Let's walk the dog. Let's just walk and hold hands and walk through this, wherever.
So what you're saying, I think, ties right into one of the points we had at the committee meeting, that we want it to look nice, we want to feel nice. Parks are that double-edged sword. The more parks we have, the more expensive it is. And we don't necessarily want to add burden to the community, but we need the parks. Right now, and this is a question I asked the committee, and I want to ask you all too. Do we want a lot of little parks everywhere, or do we want, and Justin's like, no, or do we want I think you have 3 or 4, but in general, in planning standards, you want people to be about half mile to a mile away walking from a park. And if we have some significant parks, the thing that we need to get people to those parks are pathways.
Yeah, we talked about that.
So we talked about not worrying maybe about having little patches. I mean, if you've got townhomes and apartments, yes, we're gonna need those little parks and probably the HOA run. But when we're talking cottage houses, where we don't want to burden them with an HOA, we're looking to ask the developer to connect that community to an existing park.
Right.
So ask for the pathway, and just wondering how you feel about that perspective when it comes to cottage houses.
I prefer the connectivity. I don't like tons of tiny parks for lots of reasons. I love having parks. I also know when I lived in an HOA with 2 small children, that was something that was a huge issue because no one wanted to touch it. They're like, well, we can't put in this type of playground because there's a liability issue, and we can't put this here because it's too hard to mow. And there were always reasons why they couldn't put that in there. And so it's like, well, then we'll just plan to go around the corner to a park, you know, but I like the connectivity. But that's important.
Focusing the developer contributions to that connectivity and making our existing parks
Right.
better.
I mean, yeah, I certainly agree with that. I also, I mean, like with our, Ben Lomond Views. On the east side, what we were talking about tonight, they do have some open space.
Mhm.
And I think that makes it look more beautiful. I mean, if it were solid houses, that, you know, just, but having even, small open space for the kids to play on, you know, I think we can't get away from that, even though that may be frustrating and it may be, not convenient for city staff. I think for the look of the city, it's better to have more green space than less green space.
But do you feel like it has to be a park, or do you feel like there needs to
No.
be some open space
Just
that's
open space.
landscaped nicely?
Yes,
Yeah.
really nicely, usable parks. Walking, biking, playground, stuff like that, like we have there. Well-developed areas, but also just open areas that are just grassy where people can go play, throw frisbee or, hang out with their kids, go put out a blanket and have a lunch with your kids or something if you happen to live close.
I totally agree with what you're saying. And you're right on, like at Ben Lomond. Because we're talking about 100 acres of a development. We get into this, realistically, we dance down to a 5-acre parcel. That really drives the price
Right,
of home prices.
right.
So, yes, I totally agree that. I wanna see, I need some green space, I need detention basins, I need places
Yeah, the detention
to do-
areas will provide that.
to do for water. And we tried to do a lot with the city to make those usable as green open
Yes,
spaces,
thank you for doing that, by the way.
but I think, what this actual housing ordinance is looking at, we're talking about little
Right,
parcels.
right, yeah.
And,
Thank you for
and
helping.
how do we, like we said, okay, maybe we lose some green space, but we make a trail system
Yes.
that connects. I used to work in North Ogden for a lot of years,
Mhm.
and everybody that lived south of 2700. What's their main park?
East,
No, what is south of 2700? They use Harrisville City Park. All the country boy, they
Oh,
come
yeah, everybody
down
does.
Yeah,
because it's tied in, because we have paths.
see, I was
They
also
can
thinking
walk
of
there.
the park that's just east on 26.
No, they love,
Everybody loves Harrisville Park once they find it.
yeah, like they do. I mean,
Yeah,
and we got, because there's connectivity, there's walking,
Yeah.
there's paths. That's something we're definitely looking at as we develop this Dixon Creek out on Washington and doing that park, making it accessible around the detention basin, that there's trails.
right.
I mean, it's gonna take time. It doesn't happen overnight.
It's interesting, because I know that some, obviously, some of this space is not gonna be developable.
Developable.
Okay,
There we go.
That's the word.
One more syllable.
My tongue's just not running. I need some more.
How often do we say that word?
Yeah,
Not often.
developing. And so that can be the green space, because as I look at the design, what we've seen now for, down there at Ben Lomond Views. On the east side, there's space between the houses and on the east side, and then on the west or on the south side, there's more open space there. And see that, to me, that's wonderful. And just so long as, and I hear exactly what you're saying, you're so right, because I'm thinking big picture. Overall. And you helped to bring me back down to where we need to be. But I think if we can, whatever we can do to just put in that, I think it's just gonna increase the quality of our lives, because having houses back to back like that is not, that doesn't increase.
So this might help you. In our dense housing, like in our higher density housing that we do in the mixed use overlay, there is a requirement for 20% open space.
Sweet.
And so that's where you're gonna have those townhomes that are right close to each other, and you could have, and apartment buildings, you're gonna have more space between those really dense houses. Now with these cottage homes, I've been towards some throughout the state, seeing what looks good. And with Weaver County, we develop standards to kind of figure out how do we want the cottage homes to look like, so that we don't feel that where there's enough breathing room between houses that we're okay, that they have a little bit of their own green space. But it doesn't look like wall-to-wall houses.
Right.
So this right here are the design standards, and I've adjusted them a little from what Weaver County adopted. But I just wanted to get an idea of how, what you would want these cottage homes to look like. So what I've set out is the minimum lot area would be 4,000 square feet. So if you think of that, if you do the minimum lot frontage is 40 feet, what I proposed. And that means it'd be 100 feet deep. So you would have, something we wanted to facilitate was where you've got house, yard, and then an alley accessible garage, or a garage that's accessible from the side of the road, just because when you get houses so close together, it is nice to eliminate some of that garage frontage. So we just wanted to make sure that it was possible in the code to facilitate that. So you'll see some notes on that. We also wanted to make sure that if people weren't putting garage entrance in the front, and people are just, visitors parking in front of the house, that they didn't have to put such a big setback to the front of their house, so they could utilize more of their lot. So you'll see that when a garage doesn't face the street, you can shorten your front yard setback. And also provisions for if that garage is at the back of the house, how close can it be to the back of the alleyway and things like that. It'll depend on, the developers will have their creativity of how they lay these things out. So for the setbacks to the side, this was something we saw, the 5-foot setback looks good for a single story, or if they happen to have the gable end on the second story side, but when they do, not gable, sorry, if they do the hip, but if they do a gable end where it goes straight up for 3 stories, that 10 feet starts to look pretty narrow.
Yeah.
And so that's why we just have 7 feet, or if you're more than 1 story, then you need to have a little bit more of a setback. But if you're doing a single story, you can put them a little bit closer together. And all that's just to visually create that openness that we're hoping, it doesn't need to be, 30 feet, but what visually looks nice where these houses are. I assume a lot of these are gonna be 2-story because you can't build basements.
Right.
But if they do a single story, they can use more of their lot, because of visually, it won't look so close. So these are just some ideas that you can consider. Something I am concerned about, the House Bill, right? House Bill. Thank you. House Bill 37. House Bill 37 wasn't intended to be applied that the whole neighborhood would be affordable. A lot of it is a percentage of that. Now, we can do the whole neighborhood, but I do have, concerns. So when I ran some numbers, if we look at the median household income for Weaver County, and then apply that to a loan for someone who has the down payment and no other debt, that puts their house price at $480,000. So that would be the limit to these homes. I'm concerned that if it's 100% that way, I don't know like seeing what else has been built, I don't know if developers will be able to meet that. And we can always pass the ordinance and see if they can. But if we do 100% of the homes having to meet that, we might miss a different missing middle that we were talking about. If you look at what's available right now in Harrisville and the kind of the greater Harrisville area, there are a lot of resale in the 300s. There's some new and resale townhomes, 400s. And then you jump all the way up to about 700. They advertise 6, but it's really 700. So the missing middle we have right now, it seems like, is more in the $500,000-$600,000 range. Not leverage. So just something to think about. I'm a little nervous about having the whole community meet that 120%. And we could, I mean, I wonder if we could say some of it, a certain percentage of the community meets 120%, and then a certain percentage meets 140%.
Yeah, or 150.
Or 150. Just something to consider so that we do, when we talk about that diversity, that we're kind of pushing the diversity that we'd like to see.
Let's see, we figured that out last time, so were we at, is it like 100 and, okay, so median income, I'm just thinking through what's reasonable. The median for the county is like 87 something,
Yeah,
so 120 is like around
105.
105, yeah.
Okay.
So I don't think going to 140 or 50 is unreasonable at all. Like, I think that if we did some percentages.
If we wanted to bound the developer in some way, so we kind of force that price range that we want. But so that was the only thing I was concerned about, is like, it's hitting, if we're willing to go smaller lots,
Yeah.
then we probably can hit those numbers. But then I think we lose some of the quality, and at that point, it seems to be better to do a townhome.
Yeah.
Because the single family that are so tight, you know, you may have owned your own home, but it may not be the home you want to own. I think they'd probably be competing, and people would end up purchasing the townhome that doesn't look crazy. I don't know. And they get pretty tight. And we can see, and maybe developers will present something that looks great, and they're able to meet better, you know. So that was just a thought.
So I just wanted to chime in a little bit too with kind of what direction we're going here, because we had a few years now that we've been working through our mixed use development, and Sarah's given us some standards, some minimum standards and things to consider. I pulled up, this is a repealed code, but we had this years ago with some standards, and you can see we're conceding with the new ones to even smaller lot sizes and setback requirements and things. But I bring that up so that some of the challenges when we negotiate in our mixed use is there are no standards in the code, with exception to percentages of open
Open
space
space
or
and
commercial
I mean, they're
versus
yeah.
residential in certain commercial codes. And so what we're finding, and as you sat on the 2550 Highway 89 project, when you don't have any standard in there, the developer is struggling to meet the target. They feel like the target of the city is moving all the time.
Yeah, they have
Some
zero
Concept
Zero
plan,
guidelines.
yes, and then we tell them, oh, we really don't like that, and then the negotiations can kind of drag on and on. We want to be super mindful that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot by taking standards and crippling the development
Right.
from being able to be viable.
Yeah.
But we've got to kind of marry those things together. We don't want to give the impression that staff is making those decisions.
Right.
It needs to be what the city's needs are, what we want. And so we're talking about all of these things with connectivity to trails versus requiring a park in every development. We're talking about, do we want some minimum standards in there so the developer knows, well, this is as low as the city's gonna go. Do we wanna say, this is a crazy idea, but do we wanna say that's on a minimum acreage? Cause yes, to Justin's point, you might only get a 1 acre in an A1 zone, but what if somebody buys 5 or 6 properties that are for sale and all of a sudden they've got 10 or 12 acres? The possibilities are kind of endless of what we might be faced with. So we're just trying to crack our minds open to say, look, it's really hard for certain developers to come in, others don't seem to struggle with it. They listen to what the city's saying, they come back with their concept plan, and we take the next step. But some just are struggling to hit that target when it's.
Yeah, what's the ideal middle? What's the happy medium?
So,
Because
yeah.
Some standards are important.
So especially where with the Holland Group, they've wanted, or the city's saying, we want more cottage homes. It has been difficult for them to grasp the concept of what we want, and what they've proposed are 36 5-foot wide lots that are basically detached townhomes. And in talking to them, that's what they said. They're like, well, what fits better is really townhomes. I'm like, yes, but we want these cottage houses, but it's hard because it's right next to commercial property, because they're looking for mixed use overlay. And so figuring out where is it best with the cottage houses, where is it best to put? And we do have the standards set, so it's hard when we say cottage houses, but there isn't any open space. They have a mix of townhouses and cottage houses.
And that is an extremely difficult parcel.
It is.
Like, we've got large lots that are well established and trees and everything over here, and then we have commercial and highway right here.
Yes.
And what are we supposed to put in the middle?
And so that's why I think the code is wise in that it's saying, okay, we want this mixed use overlay on the commercial properties. That fits there. But where we're looking at cottage houses, putting that in your ag land and in your residential, that's probably going to fit much better. But at that point, if we don't give them standards, it's just going to be, how many houses can we put on this property? And so figuring out what specific, and I can think of different specific trail standards to put in here. These would, so this idea would be, if we do kind of an average, so I said density, it said total units allowed, no more than the gross area divided by 5,000 square feet. So when you give them just like a density calculation and then some flexibility to go as low as a certain square footage, then they can mix it to fit the needs of, well, it's gonna fit probably their market research, which generally is our needs. So, I mean, I put 4,000 square feet, but if they have to meet all of our other building standards, I would go lower to 3,500 square feet, as long as they're meeting all the setbacks and all the other requirements. If they can make it work on 3,500 square feet, then maybe they can get some of those more affordable lots, but they'll still have the appearance, and it won't be all 3,500 square foot. It'll be mixed in some that maybe go up as high as 10,000 square feet, depending on how it lays out. And then, so it helps them with the geometry of the property. And it just can be a little bit more efficient. I do really like Jenny's point about, do we want to say a minimum acreage of what you can rezone? This is something that West Beaver is really struggling with, because you'll get one farmer that wants to, that's done farming and wants to get out. But they have this one awkward parcel, and it's not developing smaller parcels. It's very inefficient for the developer and for the city. It makes it hard for them to give the contributions we need, such as the trails, and to make it affordable because of the profit margin, and so that might be a good thing to consider, because then they'll realize, okay, I've got one parcel, but I need to negotiate and get a couple more parcels so that we can do this. So that's something to consider.
what we don't want is from historic Harrisville, we don't want spots of it, right? We don't want a bunch of these developments in the middle of a sea of agricultural property long-term, right? We know that it's gonna take time for other properties to develop. But but that's what's so tricky about that project up on Highway 89. The agricultural residents on 750, that is a hard change for them, right? And we're mindful of that, but the overall goal of the city was commercial. Well, we adopted our general plan in 2019. So how do we marry that? How do we meet the developers' needs so that we don't make it unattainable for them, but also have some kind of a benchmark that's met, so that we're not just
Would be all right
negotiate.
if I share developer perspective? I was gonna ask if we could have him come up. Yes. Would that be okay? Yeah.
This is hard stuff, so good on you guys for talking about it. No, we, all good conversations, and these standards that you're listening are not unreasonable at all. One consideration I would make with it is to say, if you're gonna put in the standards, that's to say, under no condition would I do anything less than this. I think the ordinance could say, the city recommends these standards. Bring us a plan and tell us why you think they should be different, if they should be, or meet these standards. Instead of, this is the law, this is the recommendation. So they're not, so as a developer, I'm not blind to it. I know what you want, it's written in the ordinance. But also, I have a funny shaped site. Can we have a little exception here, right?
So
Without seeking a variance per se.
have some minimums, like some things that are most important, and then you could ask for exceptions with your development agreement per se, like, hey, we can do 80%, but we need
Yeah.
some allowances for 20, like, is that just an example?
Yeah,
Um,
and then this microphone seems really loud.
Push it, push it.
So also, I thought I would share with you guys, so House Bill 37, honestly, it has a lot more in it than I knew it had.
it's so long, that's why I keep.
So let me explain something to you, because this is a big deal. In House Bill 37, they talk about moderate income housing.
Yeah.
And you guys understand you have to choose 3 strategies from your 26 choices or whatever. House Bill 37 adds several new strategies to moderate income housing. One of those strategies is increasing the density of a parcel over 6 units per acre, which is what this would do. Creating single family homes, selling at what they define as affordable, 120% AMI. And then it gives that criteria that you guys have seen, owner occupied and a few things, right? But what's cool is if you do one of those under ordinance or under development agreement, it counts, that one thing counts as 3 strategies for 3 years. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, that's the biggest carrot the state has ever offered, I think.
In the last 7 years with moderate income housing, that is the biggest carrot they've offered.
Yeah,
And we went to I attended a subcommittee meeting on Monday where we were talking about this, and this is new, right? It's just adopted,
Right.
it's all new, and so we wanted to get ahead of the game, we wanted to have these discussions, and I feel like we're in a really good position to move forward on it, whether it counts towards our moderate income housing this year or next year, we don't wanna rush it, right? Our reports are due in August, we wanna make sure that everything else we've negotiated counts towards it too. But yes, it's a huge carrot for us to make big strides for the city in the future. But what we adopt has to work.
Yep.
Because you can't just adopt it and then not apply it.
has to work. It has to be beautiful. And the trail connectivity is a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Implementation. Like if I as a developer have to go find other private land to get a trail through, Like,
It's gonna be tough to figure that out.
that can be hard. And I think about my own house. There's a regional trail. I have to walk sidewalks for probably a half a mile.
Yeah.
And then I can hit a regional trail, right? A city plan built regional trail.
It's great.
But I need the sidewalks to get there, right? And each development built their sidewalks. In fact, they're not all the way there yet. We walked it last night. My daughter's got her little rascal. I have a disabled daughter. She's got her little electric RC thing. And we're going down the dirt road, trying to get to the trail. It was actually kind of comical. I had to write it in from an Elvis typically backwards.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I think about that and smart, and it is something we want to do, but it might rely on future development to complete the connection.
Sure.
Yeah, understandably,
Unless the city owns right of way
right.
to make the connection.
And
Yeah,
that would probably, as you say, be recommendations or items to
Right.
consider. I just hope that developers understand that if they don't meet the recommendations, there's a higher probability, and I hope that the city and the planners feel comfortable saying, no, we want to go with our recommendations. You know, I don't want you to feel like you have to take the exception. That's my only concern. Sometimes it's, I think sometimes the city feels bulldozed into something they didn't want.
Yeah, this one's tough, it's definitely,
Well,
it's discretionary,
Yes,
and it's,
I feel like
and it's hard to be discretionary in politics.
it is. It's hard to, what's I going to say, with not feeling bulldozed, I feel like having this and then all the other layers that we have in code and policies and procedures, I feel like we have a great amount of checks and balances built in, which is good. Like, yes, it can be a lengthy process, but that's because it's a stable process. And we want it to be that way. We don't want anyone to feel like someone's snapping their fingers and a change is made, which some people still feel because they don't understand the process. I'm still learning the process and will be for the rest of my life. But I do feel like we have a lot of checks and balances in place, because this is just one step. The developer says, we'd like to apply for an overlay. We say yes or no, and then they still have to do everything else. They don't just like go build what they want to build. They still have to come in and present, and we still make recommendations to the city, like none of that changes.
Yeah. Still public process.
Yep.
Still-
But the more transparent we are
Yes.
with recommendations, the smoother it goes,
Oh,
and the faster I would
totally.
assume if the developer gets, you know, these standards is like, okay, this is what I'm shooting for.
And the less frivolous applications you'll get.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's our concern. We don't wanna move the target at every
You
point.
don't wanna waste your
Right.
time, staff's time, and everybody's time. Going
We
through-
got like tower houses.
Yeah,
coming
That's
to
kind of
us.
like raising kids, you give them boundaries, and then you let them operate within those boundaries.
Yes.
So I also wanted, oh, sorry, did you want to?
I wanted to pose a question to you because you've toured some of these
Yes.
cottage style. With this 40-foot frontage, right now in our standards, we allow a maximum of a 30-foot approachway.
Right.
But we don't want a full approachway as the full front yard. I'm just trying
Want
to
to see a
see,
driveways down,
yeah,
the
I'm
road.
just trying to see from my public works brain, is there something that we maybe recommend that the maximum approachways? I mean, because we're not allowing
Support of that car garage.
an RV spot, we're not allowing a third car garage. I something to
It just wouldn't fit.
maybe
Yeah.
look
I mean,
and,
I can't imagine
and
putting a
tweak.
third car garage on.
No, but I'm just saying, especially if we do, on these lots, there's no room for a park strip.
Mhm.
So we go curb and gutter, back to sidewalk.
Mhm.
That sidewalk's right at the back, curb and gutter. So you're already creating some concrete.
So with the 12 feet, you can do a park strip. So 15 feet is only if they do not have a garage in the front of their house. Otherwise, they do have to have
Okay.
25 feet.
Oh, okay,
So you won't be.
so it is at least 20, okay.
It's 25 if you have a garage
Alright.
approaching the street.
Yeah, that was why I'm seeing, a 15-foot front yard,
Yeah, with the garage, that would be dangerous.
yes.
And something else you'll notice is if you have a garage, then next to that garage, you have to have at least 10 feet side yard.
Okay.
Because you need to pull out, we don't want people backing into the
Right.
street. And so you need that 30, like the 20 feet, or, you need that turning radius.
For
So
a
you have to go-
sideways facing garage.
Yeah.
So-
No, for even the front ways facing garage, so that you can back out and turn. If you only have a few feet to the side, then it's hard to back out and then go out of your driveway front ways. Does that make sense?
It does,
So I know
but
how to
but
back
if
into their
the-
garage.
what doesn't make, if the garage is facing the street,
Yes,
why not back into the street? That's how I back out of my garage.
I know, it's
Is
not
that-
the safest thing.
Oh, is that the?
Yeah, it's best if people have to turn and go front ways out of their driveway, so they don't run over.
You can still back up, but
You can do
having
what
them
you
to
want, but this
Yeah.
just makes it possible to actually pull out of your driveway.
I haven't, I see what you're saying. I just, I've never seen that standard before.
Might be a
Or maybe we're gonna see that more in Weaver County.
I'm just trying to envision, even 40-foot frontage lots. If there's a 20-foot drive approach,
Yeah.
I go to plow that. I mean,
And so maybe we wanna have a,
I just.
Maybe- if there's that many, if you're worried about that for public works, we can say, okay, the minimum lot frontage for a garage is 50. So that it makes it work more for public works, so that's something to
And
consider.
again, I just wanted to maybe put that in some sort of detail, so they don't come back to me and say, well, your standard says I can have a 30-foot approach. Because it does say that,
A 30-foot.
approach way.
Curb cut.
At the curb cut.
Oh, I see what you mean, like I see, okay.
So I
So we
think,
could cut that down.
I think a detail like that to me would be handled case by case. We're writing the development agreement, we know what this site plan is, and we would say, okay, on this project, hey, we want your driveways to be 18 feet, and they can widen a little after they come off the street.
Yeah.
After the approach way,
Right,
yeah.
like,
I don't,
so
I
those
don't
are the things that
dictate,
we figure out.
once it's out of the, out of the easement or the driveway, I don't dictate the actual
So that is a good point.
driveway size. I just dictate the approach size.
So we could do something where we're doing such a small approach, that is wise that we say, the approach can only be a certain percentage of the lot frontage.
Oh, that would work. And then I think it would be good to have something about. Not saying, we'll take all the exceptions what's a way that we can qualify that? Because we might have if we have some L-shaped property or whatever, where this works over here, but over here, it needs to be different.
I'll look at different code language, I wonder if there's something to say, the exceptions will be taken on a case-by-case basis, or like, I'm trying to think of some sort of language that says the probability of approval, but I don't think you can say something like
Right, we
that.
want it like.
Increase it as you follow the recommendations.
We want it as concise as possible, clear,
Okay.
concise, and complete, always.
What we've had is bonus density, and where we're already talking about bonus density.
This whole thing.
This whole thing, and it doesn't really give to allow more
Right,
density.
more than what we're already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's what we have historically had in our other code.
And
So
You know what I
I,
wonder if you could do? I'm not a city attorney, but maybe the ordinance is generic and it just says planning staff will keep a standard of recommendations that the city wants to see for this. And then it's a flexible document that staff could be like, all right, this is what city council has told us. Take it or leave it,
It
you know,
gets
just.
difficult though, because we get a lot of developers that want exceptions, and then they, as staff, we do, like, they can hold a public hearing if they demand it,
Yeah.
And then it's, well, you didn't tell me, and we didn't know, when it,
Fair, yeah.
so that can be a little bit complicated. So I'll look through, I'll try and find some wording that makes it so that this is more than recommended. Unless there's a compelling
Yeah.
reason, so maybe that's worse. Recommendations must be followed unless there's a compelling reason to deviate from these standards.
and a compelling reason could be price point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Those kind of words like compelling or they're not defined very well.
no, they're very subjective.
No, but,
Character of the community, right?
yeah, but at
But-
least it would help the developer realize that you really
Yeah.
have to sell it.
Yeah, I see what you're trying to do. Yeah, I'll think about, I don't know, math guy, I'm not an English guy, so.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
even
find a
like
word for it.
reasonable exceptions can be
Yeah.
considered, like,
Yeah,
those words are really difficult intentionally,
Yeah.
so.
And then I guess my last recommendation is just remember to keep the focus on price and not let the rails drop the price of the home, right? Like this, that's the center, that's this price focus zoning and it's really never been done before, and I love
it's
it.
difficult.
I think it can work and I want to try it, but yeah.
What do you think about a 4,000 square foot lot, 2-car garage, 1,500 square feet of living space? Under 480? I think it's possible.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
We've drawn some plans, even on slightly smaller than that. I think they were 44 by 79. I don't remember what square footage,
But-
that's pretty close though.
Okay.
That
But
might
you've
be
been able to
just,
do it in under 4,000 square feet, like 3,500 square feet might be possible.
we've done no garage plans, and it's hard, because to add the garage, honestly, it's such a value add, like, it's not that much more for them to, it is more, right? It brings the price up, but the value you get for what you pay, This is why you constantly see the biggest home being built on the lot that it fits, because once the foundation's in, the value, it's so much easier to build more home than it is dollar wise.
Yeah.
Both for the
value
developer
definitely
and for
exceeds
the buyer.
Yeah.
But we're trying to control that to hit a specific demographic.
Yeah.
Which is honorable.
Well, and while, you know, addressing your open space earlier too, there are a lot of families that don't want a huge yard to maintain. You know, they might want a front lawn, but they want xeriscaped in the back, or they might, you know, vice versa. They might not want any side yard. I mean, we see this in some of our homes on the east side of 2000 North. You know, we've got a few homes that are like right at the edges of their lot, and it's like, you feel like you can barely turn around in the backyard. And they love it. That's like, they built that intentionally, and that's what they wanted.
I mean, it's a step up from your townhome or your apartment.
Yeah.
But you're not dying, and you've got a little bit of your own space. There is a market for it, obviously. people-
There is, we don't want to minimize not having shared walls, like that is a tremendous
That is a big
milestone
thing.
in a family's life.
It really
I've
is.
done that, and you're just like, I have no shared
done.
wall, this is glorious, I never have to move again for the rest of my life.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you think about the open space too, we love it, and I love it, and, you know, every lot I've bought, I've wanted to be bigger and have more space, right, as I've moved through my homes. But considering who the buyer is, who's trying to get out of an apartment into a house, and we add open space to make the house unaffordable, they're still stuck in the apartment. And we've kind of lost the goal, I feel like, so there's a balance, right? I will say, I went to a conference in St. George, and I talked with a gal, who just bought half of the twin home. And I was like, oh, you're perfect, you're the demographic I need to talk to.
Yeah.
Because I said, if I can build you a single family detached home on a small lot for 400,000. And it's 1,200 square feet and no garage. Maybe probably under 400, probably 380, it just depends on the land, it depends on a lot of factors, right? Or you can go get a 1,700 square foot townhome with a 2-car garage, right? So you've got 500 more square feet of house, you've got a 2-car garage, and it only costs you 20,000 more. What would you buy? And because in our minds, we look at the market, we're like, we worry that people are gonna like, no, I'd rather have a townhome. And she made an interesting point to me. She's like, I have young kids, and you know what? I don't always want to go to the park, and to have that fenced backyard, it's massive. My kids can go out and play,
Yep.
and I can be at home.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, fair point,
Yeah.
right? Like, because I worry, I mean, as a developer, I worry, do we have the market to buy the product, right? So we're constantly evaluating that too.
And I would take one step further with not just open space, but just green space. Like sometimes we feel like green space has to be massive.
Yeah.
And there are really spectacular gardens that are the size of that seating area, and that's a person's entire yard, but it's beautiful and amazing, and it's just not something that we're used to in Utah, because we are big sky country, Montana, Jason, I know, but that is just how it is in the West. It's not that way in lots of other parts of the country. So it is.
A patio with a bunch of potted plants for your greenery. I mean,
Yeah.
That's,
So I think reducing the maximum, the driveway space will,
Mhm.
and the front yards will add to that open space feeling. If
Yes.
we put a maximum standard on how wide the driveway can be, between homes, you're naturally gonna have green space. It's gonna look more open versus the concrete driveways along the whole way. So I think they're all good things that we could
That's required.
manipulate
Grass.
together to have, but well, do you feel like we're kind of on the right track then?
Yes, I do.
With some of the conversations that we've had with the committee and not maybe requiring each development to have a full-fledged park, because that
Right.
increases, and I'll say this too, this little caveat with the parks, and we've probably talked about this in the committee, but I'll share it here with the commission, that when we just redid our park impact fee, we have a very high level of park service in Harrisville, really high. And the thing that the study counts is only programmed parks, and the way they define programmed parks is a park where it's available to the general public. So any of these parks that we're talking about requiring, if we were, they're going to be either have to be maintained by an HOA, or if the city maintains them, they're not gonna count towards our future park impact fees. Because they don't even our pocket park on 1100 North that has a playground, it's a fairly decent sized park as a little Bowery pavilion, thank you, with a table. They don't count that as a programmed park because it only services the direct people that live around it.
Yeah.
And so for our parks to get value for our city, they have to be almost like a destination
Yeah.
park where people, they have a parking lot, people can drive, they can also walk, but they can drive there and it's available to the general population of the city. Then they recognize that as a park. So maybe that's kind of helpful for us in our future planning to recognize, yes, we really do want to value green space and open space, but we want to push people to the amenities that we have available to them in their communities that are the city's gonna be able to maintain long term.
I think that's what we were saying earlier.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the trails idea came in. And yes, we recognize that might be tricky if you're developing a island development right now. Should really call it that, but you know, a development in a certain space right now, but if we have a distance requirement that they have to be within this radius and there's connectivity to that.
Give a
I'll
regional
look
trail.
into that. Yeah, okay, the trail.
And your project's contribution to getting to that, right?
Yeah, that's a contribution to get there as well.
Yeah, and whether that's, I think part of that contribution is handled with impact fees, right? Because
Yes.
you have regional plans, we're collecting impact fees to
Absolutely.
pay for those, and then the other part is, how does the trail go through this project? You know, it might end at the end of the project waiting for the next project, but, this is a private landowner, right?
Yeah, or how does it get to a sidewalk? How does it?
And I think we got
Right.
creative in the fact that, okay, maybe it's the part of the trail is the sidewalk, then instead of a 4-foot walk, it's a 6-foot walk.
Right, yes,
I mean,
yes.
there's some
Options for sure.
creativity in that.
yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
One final consideration is you look at some of the criteria. I think you did on an alley loaded a 12-foot rear setback, is that what it said?
No, it's 5 foot.
Oh, it's 5. Okay.
Yeah.
For one level.
Oh, that's much better, okay, I was gonna say,
12's not
it's,
good.
it's either, our rule of thumb, it's less than 4 or it's 20,
Right,
it's never in between. Yeah, okay, we're on same page.
and we could reduce that. I'm gonna ask, the planner of River County why exactly it was 5 feet. I know there's some thought into it, but I could see
People
reducing
try
that
to,
even
people
more.
try to parallel park on their driveway, and then they block the alley and.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so I'll ask about that, cause.
Yeah.
I'm with you, either you're parking there or you're not, otherwise it's just wasted space.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you don't want them to try to park there because it blocks the alley.
Yeah. All joking and this is.
Yeah,
Okay,
any questions for me? I'm right here. Thank you.
Okay.
so I think where there's a density allowed, I feel more comfortable reducing that minimum lot area to give them more flexibility. If they can meet the requirements on a smaller lot, I think I'd be fine with that. So I think I'd even go down to like 30,000.
Or you.
I think I would go down to 3,000. One other thought is a couple of homes, we don't want a whole community of this, but a lot of people have proposed small homes with single car garages. Because there are a lot of single people that could fit on a smaller lot and be affordable. So something.
I think
maybe
single car garages are great. I know some people disagree with that, but I feel like there's a market for that as well.
Okay, and they would have room, so that, so,
And if the developer wants to give buyers options for a single car versus like a carport, I don't, like if someone's really trying to like cut some costs, but they want some covered parking. I think that's entertained too.
and I'll see how that works with the rest of the code, because the rest of the code right now does not require garages, it
Yeah.
requires concrete parking for 2 cars, but I think they could accomplish that with the single car garage, because there'd be the single car in the garage, and the driveway would accommodate 1 other car. So that way, we might wanna go down to even 2,500 square feet minimum, so there's a couple of these in the community to meet that demographic. But we probably want, well, I mean, the developer isn't gonna build unless I think they're gonna sell, so I don't even know if we need to limit them, I think it's just an option that might be good for the developer to explore.
Because I noticed we were looking originally at Ben Lomond. We told them, don't go below 4,000, that was our threshold. to do that, but I don't know, it would be interesting just to run some of the numbers and think like 4,500.
Well, and look at how much has changed as the Ben Lomond discussions gone on for years and years.
Yeah,
Like a lot has changed. That was probably a great choice for that.
and they would be capped at a density, so the more of these little lots you have, the more bigger lots you have. So visually, you're not gonna see, the density of, all 40-foot frontage and all 2,500 square foot. Because they wouldn't be able to fit, they'd have to build some bigger or reduce their open space. Because they'd be limited in how many they could put there. Just thoughts?
And we can continue it is on the agenda,
It is
so
on
we
the
can
agenda
have
for
more
the
discussion in the actual meeting. We're running out into where we.
We got a couple minutes.
Organic commission, a lot of people here. But if you want to continue this discussion, we can, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I would love to really, I'm such a visual person, I'm sorry, I would love to see how much land we're really talking about in Harrisville and where. And then it would be nice to have some idea, like a developer, what kind of homes really feel like a Harrisville home. To give us suggestions, something that they could work from.
Then you take Shannon on a filter. We can run a filter. We're not.
My question is, how do you quantify that demographic? At Harrisville.
Well, you just mean that it blends well.
And I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but we are very diverse from one end of the city
Oh,
to
totally.
the other.
Oh, totally.
Like, so, that's all I'm asking,
A bedroom community, quaint,
right,
you know.
I
mean,
would love to
those-
like
He wants
architectural
to feel like
standards
the Truman
everywhere.
Show, and it's gonna be great.
I think maybe what you're asking
No,
is you'd like to visually see something like this.
Yeah.
but exist, So
Yeah.
that you can get.
I'll see if I can
Yes.
find some examples
Yeah,
or videos
I
or things
just
like
think
that.
that
If
would
you
be
wanna do
helpful.
a field trip. that would be
I mean, not that we're trying to prescribe everything for the developers, but if we gave them some ideas of this is kind of what we're looking at,
I'll
and they
send
can
you-
work from it.
Western Weaver actually did that in their street regulating plan. It's a different type of zoning that they've incorporated, and they actually do have those type of design standards, because they wanted to have either agrarian feel or something else, and,
Right on.
so I'll send you what they
Yeah,
did.
just so you can email us.
Yeah,
That'd be great.
That would be- that would be-
Do we don't do a formal adjourn, we just close our work session, right? Close the work session. Okay. We'll close our work session so that we can call our 7 PM planning commission meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here and thanks for joining us. We'd like to excuse Commissioner Everett, who's not with us tonight. And then we'll move right into our consent approval, agenda item 2. Did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes from March 12th? Do we have any questions or corrections?
No, I do that.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I motion that we approve our minutes, our planning commission meeting minutes from March 12th, 2020.
I'll second.
Great, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, item 3. We are going to have a discussion about our preliminary subdivision plat approval for Ben Lomond Views Phase 2D located at approximately 1800 North Highway 89. Do we want to go over the engineer's memo from April 3rd first, probably before we discuss, because that will be helpful, since that was very recent.
I can help you with,
Yeah,
but go, do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead and do the memo.
I'm fairly familiar with this, and so. Let's see. The updated plat. 135 single family units, which is 13 units. In more than was previously approved. The main change, are the duplexes changed to single family units. And the frontage width on those decreased from 47 to 42 feet. And so these are the recommendations for approval. Add the lot addresses to the plat and make the final corrections for the red line comments. We can, I do got those in. And then submit the updated plat to Weaver County Surveyor's Office and receive approval. Submit an updated landscape plan for this phase for the requirements of FDA. A previous plan had been submitted, however, it should be updated to incorporate the changes and to include the larger parcel on 1900 North, which is not part of this phase. We would recommend adding a pathway between the units somewhere between 200 West and 125 West, and I can show you on the plans, to break up the row of homes and to provide more connectivity. And obtain final approval of subdivision improvements drawings for the city's administrative land use authority. Obtain all those final approval letters from outside agencies, so Monte Vista, Highview, Water, Power, Enbridge, Northview, Fire. Some of these may have been obtained with the old approval, but the updated plans need to be sent in new approvals.
Thank you.
I think the commissioners are all familiar with this phase. They did receive final approval previously, but they have modified that plan. And we as staff have identified 13 additional units that are added here. They've added the park programming. I believe, we have the developer here.
So that is gonna remain a part?
And yes, so they can give an update on.
It's the green space.
But it will be a park maintained by the HOA in this development for here. So Matt does have a couple of comments, red lines on this, and
So he doesn't mark where exactly the trail could go, but you know, on that 1975 north to 1950. Where,
It's like a little bit left of the one.
yeah, coming through there somewhere is what.
Okay, so
Thinking, trying to break those up, and maybe where they've got open space on either side, if there's anywhere to shift, kind of shift the open space so that they can do it like, just like a pathway between.
So we've actually taken, sorry, Brandon Green,
Thank you.
Thanks for.
It's nice to have you here.
It's good to be here, thank you. So we took Matt's comments and we have already made all the corrections to the plat that were asked. And Sarah and Jenny are correct. We took the comment to split the homes on 1975 North, and I want to say we even did it to 2000 North. I'll have to go back. I've got the plat. If you'll give me just 1 second, let me just pull it up. Sorry, I was late getting here.
So would that pathway then run clear to the sidewalk?
So it goes, and I'd be happy to even, yeah. I'm just gonna approach you and show you what we've
May
got.
approach you, bench.
So we are going from, is it
2000.
2000, and we'll split the homes and we'll come down with the path to the sidewalk right here.
Okay.
Which is, see, is it, so does it also go to the sidewalk along 2000?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And that was I know that's a concern that we've had from a number of people too for school access.
Brandon,
Yeah.
did you send it to Matt?
We canceled that on.
We just got it back.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Honestly, okay.
Can I see it?
Would you like to see it?
One maybe possible kind of issue.
With the path,
Huh?
with the path or with
No.
this open?
Brandon, just show me, like, link to the
Okay.
screen.
I'll just show you up here. I've been on my computer all day and it's dead. So it's coming from 2000 North, and it will be splitting between these lots here. I thought that it was coming down here. We're actually gonna come over here, split these lots and come down closer to 150 West.
Brandon,
Kind of in the center of that.
Okay.
Brandon, in your additions, was there an additional lot or two put onto the lower part of 1910 Road?
Those two that Jenny's pointing to?
Yes.
Oh,
Um,
The reason I'm concerned is we have that irrigation line. And in all the previous drawings, that irrigation ditch is to be piped. And that required over a 20-foot easement. And I don't know the spacing in that sliver, because it actually ran down and
It's
then
like
piped
10
into
minutes
this
right
road and then diagonal across.
So does this irrigation stay in place? That doesn't get, okay. I will,
That was
Double
my
check.
only,
what I do know
I
is,
just, I know this is a plat, and
Yeah.
and I don't want to go into engineering up, but it's just. That conflict.
I can,
so. Note to self, plug computer in before you go to anything.
right there,
right here, there's a patch there.
You may plug in your computer.
Can I plug in? May I borrow some power?
Be careful of the owl, he's really sensitive when we're on Zoom, so if you kick the cord, then he'll go, and our participant on Zoom won't hear us.
four, five, six, seven,
I'm so sorry.
right there.
Mm,
Do you have
very
8 there, Jenny? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Slice.
But it's within the same, it's within the same easement here. So, yeah, that still goes from.
What we, so that you understand where the 13 additional homes came from, we aren't adding any more density than what's already there, but we took some homes that were down here in the wetlands. Because we didn't, there, it was a wet area.
Right.
And we didn't wanna have to deal with that. We mitigated the big pond down here and it took a lot of structural fill, and we were worried that this was gonna be similar. And worried about maybe structural integrity on the homes. And so we took those and we added them up into that area, so.
So have we heard yet, from, what's the organization that approves?
On the
I mean, what are 100, 500 year flood? FEMA? Thank you. Golly, I just could not figure that. So do we have a written?
So I think what the developer's saying here is they're opting, in the original MDAs, we had an excluded development area of
Right.
13 homes.
Right. I remember that.
And unless they mitigated the
Right.
floodplain in that space, and if I understand correctly, the developer is opting to not mitigate that floodplain, and
Correct.
they're adding the density to these,
2D.
to 2D.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So they're just making the one houses smaller, and just adding.
Well, we're taking them from duplexes to single-family residential homes, and we feel strongly that a single-family residential home is going to be more beneficial to the property owner than a duplex in resale value. It seems to be a little bit better market for a single family. So we've taken all of those lots and changed them over into single-family residential lots. Now, I've got some plans that I could show you too, but these are 2-story buildings, that have 3, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, main living, on the main floor, and then the bedrooms up on the second floor. These will not have basements, because we think the water. Water table challenge there. But as we get going, we may find, anyway, yes, there's not basements.
Okay, so we're looking at making the houses slimmer but longer. So cutting back the side yards so that the frontage is only 42 feet.
Yeah.
But are we going deeper then into the lot with the house? Is that the idea?
The houses that we have planned for this area will fit on the lots, and there will still be some rear yard, some front yard. It's a 2-car garage. And so, yeah, they're gonna, in order to meet the size that we need for a single family home, they're gonna probably be a little bit deeper, but they wouldn't be much deeper than what your town or twin homes would have been anyway. We're just basically taking those and separating them into single family.
Right on.
So,
Can I make a suggestion?
Please.
So I would just, when in your approval, I would say something about just, about the possible easement for Pine View and I'm trying to think. So you.
It's actually, it's a ditch
Oh, it's the ditch.
for actually several private ditch users.
And is it required to be piped?
Yes, it's required, it's in the drawings, it's all that, I was just making sure that we have to,
Oh, okay, as long
I'm
as they're
trying-
piping it, then we're good.
well, not necessarily.
No?
No,
They'll have to make sure.
because even if you pipe something, if the house or if we don't have a 20-foot easement,
Oh, to access it, that's what
To
you're worried
access
about.
it.
Oh, so we need the
Yeah.
20-foot easement shown.
on the backside of those
Yeah.
lots.
and we tried to do it kind of that it wasn't in those lots, but
You just need to make
I'm
sure.
going back through Dropbox to
To see
find
the old plan.
the 100 million plans we have.
Okay, so we might need to consider,
But again,
easement being shown on the plat. Okay.
but
So I just pulled up.
we can,
let's
I
see.
can verify. it.
So we could even just say, subject to the irrigation, the necessary irrigation easement.
So it looks like what we're showing changes to the plan are just those. I don't show anything down here changing on
This is
that.
the same.
I
But
just,
we do need to make sure that
I
we got
just,
that
I
time.
mean, again, it's paper and I'm not seeing how big that buffer is between the back. I know we gave us a buffer between the back of the lot per se and the next property line,
Yeah,
but what's that
It
exact?
looks like they have the property isn't on the actual pipe, but the easement isn't shown and the maintenance easements or access easement.
okay.
Okay.
Let me, yeah, I'll
Again,
make sure, I'll double check
We
on
can
that.
double check that with Matt.
And then tomorrow, when we have a meeting tomorrow to discuss the next phase, I will let you know, what's going on
It's
there.
gonna be complicated, just so you.
Okay,
I would just add as well, as we're throwing things at you, that under the new MDA, there's a requirement to fill out a density sheet
okay,
with each phase. So
okay,
we actually will need that from 2A as well, but as part of this phase, we wanted to identify the density transfer from the
from down below. up to-
floodplain into this, so that we can calculate the
Okay,
overall density of the
Density, yeah.
development.
okay. Do you feel that that's going to be a problem?
No, it's just a the new MDA adopted required that sheet to be submitted with each phase on how many units are in each phase.
Okay,
So we can keep a total of the density of the
Okay.
project.
gotcha.
It's an exhibit to the MDA, it should be in there.
Okay, I'll go through that. You got that signed.
Yes, it did.
Okay, so that's the changes that we're proposing to the 2D of the Ben Lomond subdivision.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I'm clear.
Okay.
I'm sort of thinking, because my understanding from reading all this is, and even from that graphic that we showed earlier, is that they were added 13 homes, but we're saying that's not the case. We're moving them from one area to another, so we're keeping the same density, correct, same number of houses, so we're not adding 13.
We're not adding anything. Your density is going to stay, or the number of homes will stay the same. We're just simply reallocating those that were in that floodplain, just outside of that floodplain, because we just didn't want to have to.
Those 13 weren't in this phase before, that's why it's adding to this phase, but it's not adding to the overall project.
Because it was in a different phase.
That's why they use the term adding.
And I think Matt's note here from our catch up with him too, and it's not included, it says which is not part of this phase.
Right.
I think the city staff's request is to identify if this is left as the floodplain, what the programming for that area would be.
Okay. Okay,
So that at the end of the project, we just don't have a,
just a
Field that's
parcel of
not-
ground that's not
oh,
being
and
maintained.
yeah, with the long term.
So do we need to put that language in our motion as well?
It's
What's already,
included,
because it's in the memo.
it's included in Matt's memo, so I think we're okay. As long as we've identified here on the plan what that looks like, because they've included this part,
Right.
which was previously in 2A. They've moved it to 2D, which is great. We just need a landscaping plan, a site plan for that part. Okay, that's okay.
You don't have to worry about 2A at this moment, so we're doing 2D. Right, so, yeah.
So,
I got that.
Yeah.
the notes on this phase that you're approving preliminary plat on tonight would be the density calculation sheet that's identifying how many units are going in this phase. We would like to see a landscaping and site plan for the park that's now included in 2D. Matt's concerned about with the long-term programming for this space as they've added the density from the excluded development area into 2D.
Right.
And then everything else on Matt's memo.
Yeah.
Is that helpful?
Yes.
So we're ready to entertain a motion, or do either of you have any additional questions?
Still waiting.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. We're here for discussion.
We can discuss.
Okay,
ask
so,
more
so
questions.
what phase is that park in now?
This part,
Is that part of 2D,
that,
that open space area?
that's,
That still was its own
Yes.
phase.
so we've got,
So that,
here, all
I was just gonna pull up the master
Yeah.
plan. It'll be easier to.
of, so
There you go.
it's its own separate phase.
So if we zoom in on this space. These are the homes that they've,
So they're no longer gonna be that road through there, it'll just go, it'll end right there.
the density of these have been added to this space.
Right. Yeah.
that, Chad does make a good point. Go back to their plat.
Oh, with the road?
Did it, right?
We. What is the,
They need to run.
No, I believe the road is going to continue.
Okay,
And I will,
and that's 1910. So we want to know the connectivity with 1910 and 1900.
yeah, the road will go through the open space. To be defined on either side, so open space will be on either side of that road, so the road will continue through.
Yeah. Thank you, it's just. Okay, I mean, that would still be great if we had that much green space.
Yeah, and that opens it up.
Mentioned nicely, like you were saying earlier, it does integrate really well with the old properties to the north and south.
You're gonna have.
Okay,
At least the part that we were just adding. All right, so I motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plat. Ben Lomond Views Phase 2D, located at 1800 North, 89. Subject to the city engineer's memo dated April 3rd, 2025. And also to include required irrigation access easement. And we need to say anything about
we need to
the
add,
density transfer document.
Density calculation for
Yeah.
the phase.
And also the density calculation for the phase
The landscaping and site plan for the park.
the landscaping and site plan for the park, either side of the road.
And all other staff or agency comments.
And all other staff or agency notes, requests.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for adding.
Taking
things
a
to the notes.
Way to go.
Great, love it.
I took some notes, but the language kept changing, so I had to go here.
I know, I filled the whole
I was
margin.
like, okay, well, which one is it?
Yep. Okay, for item 4 on our agenda, we are going to continue our discussion about recommending or tabling the adoption, well, recommending the adoption of or tabling ordinance 562 housing affordability. Who'd like to go next?
So in our work session, we discussed the Haas ordinance as it stands and the input we received from the public on our public input at the last meeting. Some of their comments were regarding just the quality of the development, also concerned about making sure it really is affordable. We had comments about integrating it with current House bills, specifically House Bill 37 that was proposed. And so we've had a chance to look at those and have recommended that we use the affordability definition from House Bill 37, which defines affordability as 120% of
That's the median.
of the area median income for the county in which the residential unit resides. So we do plan to add that. We also had a lot of discussions about design standards and making sure that what cottage homes are built in this area are not only affordable, but also contribute to the quality of life in Harrisville. So we can continue discussion. We've got directives from here to look into maybe a minimum acreage. That was one item. Making a recommendation versus a requirement possibly for the design standards so that with compelling reason, they could deviate from those standards to make, if it does add benefit to the community. We thought about a curb cut restriction to make sure that Public Works doesn't have too many driveways where we're limiting our lot frontage. Let's see, we'd like to figure out what type of trail recommendation. So instead of asking for open space, we are looking for connectivity to the existing parks in Harrisville, which are awesome and plentiful. And also, we'd like to look more at what type of homes fit in Harrisville. What kind of a look do we want? Is that something we want to consider in the ordinance? And maybe some pictures and videos of where this has been implemented and get an idea of what this would look like. Any other input or ideas that you want to?
Not in addition to, you mentioned adjusting the minimum lot area recommendation.
Thank you. I think that's, I know it up here, and possibly making it small as maybe 3,000 square feet. So that, or 2,500 square feet, so that it gives the developer more flexibility, but limiting the total density on the project. Something we did talk about, and I bring that up, is allowing for single car garages, but where we're not asking for garages, that
Yes.
doesn't really need to be included. It should meet that ordinance. So
Do you have any other questions about like numbers or other things we would like to be in the Haas language itself? Yeah.
Oh, I did have one thing. And I thought just for the sake of consistency, I noticed as I was reading where we, at the Harrisville side versus the Lehigh City side. For example, on the second page of the document we were given. Sort of in two instances where we talk about opportunities for critical and essential workers, we also included first-time home buyers. But in this particular paragraph here, it just said as well as others. We might as well just make, I don't know, unless there's a reason why we can't change that to be consistent in all descriptions. And I don't know why we couldn't do that, because there's. It's on the second page of the comparison document. And it's the second paragraph down on the left-hand side.
So we don't have those public comments pulled up, but my understanding is that you want consistency with the
Yeah.
term critical and essential workers as well as others through the document.
No, he's saying he wants it to include first-time home buyers.
Let's say
right?
first-time home buyer, because,
Before that as well as others.
well, because this is the only place that I see as well as others is in this paragraph right here. Everything else is critical workers and first-time, right? And this language doesn't appear anywhere else that I can see.
So you want the language to stay or
No,
to delete it and then just
delete it.
add?
First-time home buyers, just so it's consistent in all reference.
I was going to review that, it might not. The intention is to, I would say. Primarily, we want to look at critical and essential workers and first-time home buyers, but it is going to benefit everyone.
Right,
And so I think that's the intent in this part of the document,
okay,
but I think we're more in the other parts of the document, and I've got to look exactly, but I believe we're trying to do first right of refusal for us, for that certain demographic, but the Haas ordinance, while there is a first right of refusal for a certain demographic, it is meant to benefit all.
okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense? So.
I mean, I
where's
haven't
the other
really heard,
part
I
that
have,
show it?
we're talking about a right of first refusal, and I haven't really, I haven't heard us talk about that.
We talked about it a few meetings ago, we talked about, do we want it to say, you know, for the first 30 days that it's on the market?
Right.
It was one of those discussions, was to my knowledge, the first time we brought that up.
Okay,
We said, so that you could have, yeah. But
okay,
then,
so that after the 30 days, that is
Yeah.
when the right of first refusal would come in.
So here's the section
Okay,
for priority ownership, the first 30 days after the unit is listed or advertised.
just say that you are under.
They may not offer or accept an offer unless it comes from one of these three categories.
Right. See, and that's also where it just lists the critical workers and the first-time home buyers. It doesn't list others.
I don't think it.
So in
You know
this,
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's the consistency that,
so we don't actually want consistency in this particular situation. For the first 30 days, we want to offer it just to these three demographics. But when they're referring to the Haas as a whole, it should benefit everyone. But the first right of refusal is just for this demographic. So after that first 30 days, anyone will be able to purchase it. And the hope of this ordinance is that everyone benefits. There's just an added bonus for those certain demographics.
you know, when you say that, sorry,
It's okay.
this is my day to ask stupid questions.
No.
I have those, actually more and more often.
Yeah,
So when we're talking about benefiting everybody, I mean, are we saying that the price, so if we open it up to the general public to purchase the house after 30 days, are we saying it's gonna benefit who?
whoever purchases the home.
Okay, when you say everybody, just people who are interested in buying that home?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'm just trying to quantify the languages.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I
So
understand better.
does that make sense? So
Yes.
30 days, we're trying to kind of front load those three demographics that really need a head start. So there is a lot of competition. They can be first on the competition.
Right.
But after those 30 days, then it opens up to anyone who is wanting to purchase.
Okay, and the price will stay the same for anybody or?
The way this is
they raise
written,
it?
it's for everyone.
Okay, after that point of view, they can, okay, right on, okay, thank you.
My view with this, the deed restriction
Yes, that they have to live in them. It cannot be purchased by a rental company.
Right.
Right,
Yep. Yep, exactly. Or they get that hardship exception where they can rent it for 6 months or a year or whatever.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. I feel better.
Good. I thought of something else, Angie, our Commissioner Franklin. We talked about possibly limiting how many homes need to meet the 120%, so that we could get a little bit broader of a demographic into these areas and a little bit higher price range to work with. So I guess that's the question. How many do we want to meet the 120%? Do we want to hit another percentage, so maybe 30 or 50% meet the 120%? And, or do we like 30% meets the 120, 30% meets 140, and then 30% would just be market value?
yeah, that's a great question, because again, it's a bit of a hypothetical game here. It's a little bit with darts, this is new for all of us, so.
And I guess the way I would look at it, making this decision is, what housing does Harrisville need? Now, we need different markets. How much, the reason we set this cap is so that the city does have some control over what they're sold for, not just the market driving them higher and higher. So that's why we have these caps. But we also need to make sure that developers are interested in building them, right? And they will distribute them based on their market research. So the flexibility that we give them, how much do we want there? They won't be able to sell. I mean, this is the truth of these. When you cap certain ones, it's gonna be really hard for a developer to sell another one at much more than the capped price.
Right.
That makes sense.
Because the apples to apples, it's gonna be very difficult. So when you cap part of them, you do kind of influence the whole development for that home.
I don't know, does the city lean one way or another on that issue?
So I'm just reviewing House Bill 37 and
Again,
yeah, they have at least 25% of the total single-family residential units qualify as affordable housing. That seems kind of low to
Seems
me
a little
to
low,
have a
yeah.
whole ordinance that
I was
just
gonna
basically
say,
says
definitely,
75% of these homes you can just sell at market value.
yeah,
Then it says at least 25% of single-family residential units per acre to be no larger than 1,600 square feet. So they're putting a square footage requirement on those homes as well.
I think these are options. So they're saying these are options you can implement a variety. You don't have to do all of them, but you can do, these are some ideas of what you could do.
Jenny, can you remember what line you're starting at?
Yes, this is down in 487 is
Okay.
where it starts talking about the qualifying affordable home.
Okay.
It says to ensure, so I guess that it's reading.
That sounds pretty.
May adopt requirements.
Sure,
So-
sure, to ensure that 60% of the units are deed restricted, 25.
So there's, the way I interpret it is they're saying, these are some of the ideas you may consider to, and then the ensure is that ensure that this is done, or ensure that this is done as your options. But the city doesn't need to adopt all of these. It's either through a zoning ordinance or development agreement, the municipality may adopt requirements for the qualifying affordable home ownership. To ensure. So the ones that have been set out for the HAWS currently are 100% of the homes are affordable. And these are, and also the deed restriction, those are two of the options that we've implemented in the HAWS so far. But these are other options that you could implement, but you wouldn't be required to implement, is the way I interpret it.
Well, and then we have counts, like our numbers are determined as a city, not like by neighborhood, like overall, we have to have certain percentages as a city, that's correct, right?
So the moderate income housing reports don't have percentages anymore. That was removed with the requirements to adopt the strategies.
Oh, okay,
And so we have to show that we are taking action to meet our strategies. It used to be that you had to show that the city had X amount of percentage
Right.
of homes in the city that
And that
were
was ours.
affordable, but now we have so few. That's the honest truth. You just,
Yeah.
cities have so few affordable homes, they don't have a percentage requirement. They're showing you,
That's good.
they're asking you to show what progress you've made towards your strategies.
okay.
So,
So
how
how,
many?
yeah, if you wanna talk about
Like initially I was
what it
thinking
looks like,
not less than 50%,
Okay,
but I don't know. What do you two think?
I don't have. I don't feel like I have enough information to quantify
it's a difficult,
that.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's no, this is new, this is a new game. This is new for everybody.
This is why, again, we've got to leave a little meat on the bone to entice the development.
Yeah,
You know, if you did a 50% at 120, at 25% at 150, and then 25% at
open
market
market.
value. I mean, you're enticing developers to build this still with the attainability and affordability that entice homeowners to come in and be our community members
Mhm,
and be our residents.
mhm.
It's kind of that fine,
Yeah, I like that.
it's such a,
Staggered idea.
Yeah.
it's such a balance, yeah,
Yes.
yes.
So 50% affordable.
So we could really even say, we can even say up to
Each
120%,
point
up
equals
to 150%,
25%.
up to market value.
yes,
You could say something like that too.
Yes.
absolutely, and if they find that affordable sells, then we'll get more affordable homes.
Right,
Yeah.
But you know what they're gonna say though. We need more market value.
but it might make it more viable on the product, right? If we
Mhm.
get a little wiggle room on there and they can make some more, this is a bit of the model that they used in West Weber. To get those affordable houses, because then they gave them some flexibility that they could have some larger homes that they actually make more money off of
Mhm.
versus. Them all trying to be affordable, and the density is so dense that nobody,
And it is ironic, but right now, a 30-acre lot doesn't stay on the market either. So there is a need for everything, and when someone buys that 30-acre lot, they're freeing up something below them and below them,
right.
so.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
there is a lot.
So it doesn't sound like we're ready to recommend yet because we have so many changes to make, so
Yeah.
I think we need to, I can make or entertain to table. Do either of you want to make the motion or would you prefer?
Okay, so. If. Are we gonna be frustrating? Any process that needs to move further quickly if we table it, or we?
No, I would recommend that we table this.
Yeah,
discussion.
Okay, all right, all right. Okay.
It's not ready.
I think we're making great progress at each meeting. I think we're all understanding it better. We're all
Okay, good.
in agreement with what we need for the city. The more that we talk about all the things, and it allows more time for research and checking with language and.
I totally agree, because that would be my natural relations table. Okay,
We need to add a bunch of stuff to it.
No,
Make sure,
you
yeah.
can just take
Okay, okay.
exactly what it says.
I want to say if we needed to specifically add those or not, but okay. I will make a motion to table ordinance 562, housing affordability. Ordinance, based on commissioner discussion.
You have a second.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, now we will open it up to public comments for anyone that would like to make a public comment that hasn't or would like to make an additional one.
We still have any folks online?
We did have a viewer earlier.
It was with me.
Oh,
Okay, gotcha, okay. But I just want to make sure we acknowledge them. Okay.
good. Close public comments. All right, any staff or commission follow-up?
Yes, we actually do have some on behalf of Mayor Tate. She asked me to inform you as commissioners that she received Nathan April's resignation on Sunday. So he's resigned due to personal reasons. She will be seeking an appointment to the commission. But he will no longer be serving as a planning commissioner. I also wanted to inform you, this is a bit of breaking news this week around Harrisville. This is what Justin was kind of alluding to earlier. The city staff met with Pineview Water Services last week. And their new general manager and staff have gone through their regulations to make sure that they are okay moving forward, but they talked to their board at their board meeting yesterday. And as long as infrastructure is put in place and appropriate connectivity can be made to the Pineview water system, they will service Harrisville City. So this is
But this is new.
All Harrisville City.
Because I'm already connected.
No longer will there be certain pockets off of Larson Lane, pockets in hopefully down on West Harrisville Road, North Harrisville Road.
There won't be.
So there.
As long as there's infrastructure, there will no longer be a zoning pocket or a boundary pocket that they said there's no longer a boundary in it.
So they're currently doing their metering project.
Yeah.
So they're required under state code to have meters. The secondary water all has to be metered. But this is it's historic in my time here in 21 years of Harrisville. We've always been told anything outside Pineview boundaries is not eligible to be annexed in. And there are certain areas of Harrisville that might have been in Pineview boundaries, but there was no infrastructure in place to service. And so it is the reason why the 4 Mile Special Service District was created, was to service those areas. So we're in talks with Pineview on what this is going to look like in the future. But it's a huge relief to the city to know that overall, the Weaver Basin Water does not want an estate at large, doesn't want to have small service districts all over providing the same kind of a service. They'd rather have the larger water companies managing that infrastructure. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's new. We just received word yesterday that their board is open to that. And so we'll be discussing a lot of those details with any project, particularly Oak Hollow and even Warren Hollow. The infrastructure is at the north side of Larson Lane, so they just have to bring it across that road to provide the service in those areas. So it was very exciting for us and very surprising that they called that meeting, but we're really pleased to move forward with our partnership. So we wanted to let you guys know
That's
that.
great, thank you.
Glad to hear it.
Great person.
Are we planning on this, or is the mayor planning on the planning commission being a 4-person commission, or is the plans to go back to being 5?
Yes, so it was planned to go back to 5. At this moment, it's planned to go back to 4.
Yeah.
And then
I
eventually,
think just let it keep shrinking.
I think
the ordinance says 3 is
we can
7.
have up to 7.
Oh, really? No.
Yes, I believe.
5 is great, sure.
So 3 is considered like.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 is.
So we can't check that.
No.
No filters.
Yeah, I can post a filter if you want. Yeah, yes, she intends to appoint more commissioners and she'll take applications for that.
Gotcha, okay. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all that we have. Anything called up, Sarah?
No, I just wanted to say I've enjoyed working on this project and really happy that Brandon has worked so many months to put it together. Just impressed that Harrisville is so forward thinking and excited to be a part of the team. It's been great. Thank you. You guys are impressive.
All right, if we are finished, then I will make a motion to adjourn.
We'll second that.
I don't think we need to do. Favor.
Well, you have to give it to the chair.